Hello. I'd like to share my thoughts on protest. I'm wearing my African dashiki shirt I bought at a great store on 79th and Halsted here in Chicago. Some people might say, well, that's cultural appropriation. No one said I was allowed to wear this, except for maybe the person who sold it to me, who is from Africa. So he might be the best qualified. But I think the whole idea of cultural appropriation is nonsense, essentially. I think that if I make this video and wear an African dashiki shirt, and I talk about issues that are going on right now, as a white person, I might inherently be offensive to people. Just those things. Doesn't even matter what I say. But, you know, I struggle with the question of whether I'm racist frequently. I waver a lot. I vacillate frequently. And I don't know the answer. I don't know if I'm really racist. I don't think I'm this very, very ugly-hearted racist. But sometimes, you know, I do have a lot of judgment for people. And, I've had people tell me that if I don't like one black person, then it's like I don't like any black person. Or if I don't have love for every black person, then I'm racist. But the truth is that there are black people that I really enjoy spending time with and talking to, and there are black people that I really don't enjoy and want to spend time with. And that goes the same for Asians, for whites, for Hispanics. So, and I know in the black community, from being in a black neighborhood for a long time, from spending a lot of time with black people, it's the same. You know, black people are not a monolith, white people are not a monolith, no race is a monolith. In fact, categorizing people by race is inherently problematic. But all that is not really what I want to say in this video. What I want to talk about is this idea of protest. Demonstration. I guess I don't have as big a problem with the word demonstration as I do with the word protest. Protest to me is like standing in the way and raising your voice in an angry manner, in a demanding manner. Like one thing that you hear in some protests, I drove by a protest, and what I heard people chanting was, "No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace." So in that statement, if you were to break it down, it's that if I don't have the kind of justice that I want, then I will facilitate a lack of peace. If everyone wants peace, first grant me the justice that I desire. So that's a very selfish attitude. It's an eye for an eye attitude. It's a, you know, fight fire with fire attitude, and a violence begetting violence attitude. So I can't support that. In Chicago, I remember when I was staying at a homeless shelter and I was talking to a counselor, one of the counselors that ran the shelter. We were talking about a protest that was going on where they had blocked off one of the expressways in Chicago known as the Dan Ryan. And I was like, you know, I don't really agree with these protesters. And she was like, well, why don't you agree? And, you know, they were protesting against guns and violence in their community. But they were blocking traffic. A significant amount of traffic, a highway full of traffic. And, you know, I felt that that was wrong. I listened to a protester last night on the news say, you know, we have to block the highways because we're here in large numbers and there's no room on the sidewalks, so we have to block the highways. Well, I don't think that's a good enough reason. I've never really been involved in a protest. I'm not against people being together in large numbers. I think that there's a way to have people together in large numbers in an area, and they have peaceful goals. They have the goal to be in fellowship with each other, the goal to enjoy each other and, festivities, and maybe they're supporting a cause, maybe they want to demonstrate and educate and teach and share information and knowledge and wisdom. And I would be for that kind of arrangement. But I think that kind of arrangement where you have large numbers of people requires people who are good with logistics, people who will get, the permits required, people who will have the right message to the crowd, and instruct members of the crowd to pick up their trash, to leave the area. In my church, we had this motto saying, "Leave the plus." So you would come into an area and you would try and leave it a little bit better. So as you walked out of, like a camp study hall, you might take everything in your area and also clean up or pick up a piece of trash and throw it in the trash can on your way out, that kind of thing. So someone who was in charge of logistics and someone who wanted to, create a gathering that was peaceful and loving would tell the crowd, we're using this area, we're using this place, and if it's a park or something, this is something that we all came together to make, with our tax money. And so let's respect and honor the loving intentions of people that have placed this area here, and let's leave the plus, that kind of thing. Basically, to make it very simple, I'm against protest because I'm against someone blocking someone else. It's basically when you're blocking the way of someone. I think that's an unloving act. The only condition in which that would be loving is if someone has malevolent intention and it's necessary to restrict their travel. Now, you could look at the world and say, well, everyone has unloving intentions. People are full of unloving intentions, you could say, fallen intentions. People are very selfish, concerned with their own situation. People care only, if not just about themselves, they'll do this thing where they're like, well, I got kids, so I'm caring for them. Not thinking that perhaps they could do more for their children to teach them to be self-responsible people and grow up to be people that take initiative and, have a positive effect on the world and are not dependent on others or have this sense of entitlement with everything. And that's their excuse. So maybe they're not selfish in themselves or over their own concerns, so they think, but it's selfishness over their family. They care about their family, the members in their family. Their family is most important. Their family is all holy and sacred. Everyone else can go screw themselves for the most part, unless they have friends of their family. So there's a lot of selfish motivations that people have. There's a lot of negative emotions that are in people, a lot of fear, a lot of anger, a lot of rage. I see it myself. But at the same time, I still can't condone blocking the way of everyone. I can't condone that. I think that there's another way. What would be that other way? I would say do something courageous. People think it's courageous to go out and march and hold a sign and chant something angrily, or block someone's path, or shout at someone, "Wake up!" You know? I don't see that as courageous. I see that as a power trip. I see someone doing something like that having some issues inside of themselves where they feel very small, they feel very disrespected, dishonored, unloved, and the only way they have reasoned to counteract that painful feeling inside of themselves is to boil up in anger, you know, become inflamed and take their rage out on other people. So to me, that is not a courageous act. To me, protest is not courageous. It's not loving. Demonstrating something, teaching, educating, sharing wisdom with other people, that's courageous. And we have opportunities all the time, every day, throughout the day. So moment to moment, really, to do something courageous. We can do something courageous for ourselves. We can go against one of our addictions that have been hamstringing us in our lives, that have kept us from going forward. We can decide to go against the fear that we have of our own fears. And instead of being afraid of our own fears, we can feel our own fears. Those are things we can do for ourselves moment to moment throughout the day. But we can also stand up to others. We can stand up to strangers that we see doing the wrong thing in public. Now, I would say as far as that's concerned, there's like a gradation. It would have to be something very, very wrong, like a parent beating their child or verbally harassing their child. But littering, maybe that's not as big a deal, because it's important to have a certain level of rapport with someone before you bring something to their attention. But yeah, standing up to strangers. And then how about this? Standing up to your friends. Saying something to your friend that is against their own ideology, something to suggest to them another way of thinking, another way of acting, at the risk of your friendship, at the risk of whatever benefits you get from your relationship. What if you say something to your friend and they say to themselves, "That's the last straw, Barry"? Sorry, I was thinking about that the other day. I think that's funny. "That's the last strawberry." I've had it up to here. Anyway, sorry. What if they say that's the last straw, and they block you on Facebook, and they block you on Instagram, and they block you on all the social media, and then you try and call them, and they say this number is no longer there or something, and you're blocked. And they don't want you in their life anymore, and you are getting certain things from the relationship. Now you feel bad, you feel this pain in your heart, and it might just be addictive pain. It might just be, based in addiction, that you had codependent stuff going on with yourself and that friend. But you ask yourself how hard it is. How many moments do you have to say, well, I don't really agree. Maybe you're the friend that has agreed with your friend all the time. And one day you decide, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to agree today. What about your parent? What about standing up to your parent? Suggesting another way of doing something to your parent? What about standing up to your child? What if, you don't have much love from your spouse, and you're kind of getting something from your child, your son calls at least once a week, and you feel like if you said something to him that was against, you know, his normal thought process, then he might stop calling. He might not like you. I'm just saying, I'm suggesting, you know, different situations in which standing up and telling the truth is a very courageous act. So if you're looking for something to do during this time of a lot of acrimony, a lot of violent feelings, a lot of terror and chaos, maybe consider something that is more loving than protest. I think that's about all I wanted to say. Let me just close with this. I think one of the most courageous things that you can do, and one of the most powerful and impactful things that you can do as a person. So if you really want to change the world, tell the truth. Be honest with other people and choose not to betray yourself. If you feel a certain way and you're pining to say something and you've thought about it and you know you've sat on the sidelines, you've sat on the bench for far too long, and you've reasoned that it's, if I look at all the situation, you know, the whole dynamics of this situation here, I think it is loving to say this. Say it. Why not say it? I think telling the truth is one of the most powerful things you can do. And when I say choosing not to betray yourself, I'm saying be honest about your own feelings. Yeah. There's a lot that I can say on that, so maybe that's something for another video. But yeah. Thanks for watching, and I wish you well, and Godspeed.